Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about how to sideboard with the Gruul Delirium deck in Standard. So I've already talked about the deck as a whole in the deck tech that was posted at some point last week. You should check that out. However, we're going to talk about how to sideboard against the top 10 most popular decks in Standard with this Gruul Delirium deck. Let's jump into it. So this is Gruul Delirium. We've already talked about the main deck, so we're just going to leave that. But as far as the sideboard goes, Torch to Tower, very good against aggressive decks. Also Exiles, which is good against Enduring and Heartfire Hero. Abrade is a 2-mana instant, deal 3 damage to target creature, destroy target artifact. Good against aggressive decks, decent removal. Also main deck Artifact Hate, which is a little bit, artifacts are a little bit more popular after Aether Drift. Playing Obliterating Bolt gets things with big butts out of the way. Also, again, Exiles, so really good against the Enduring creatures. And decent against the aggressive decks. Pyroclasm is a board wipe that doesn't really kill that many of our creatures, but allows us to deal 2 damage to each creature to be able to wipe the board of these weenie decks, these Convoke decks or red decks. Screaming Nemesis is excellent against decks that are looking to block or have damage-based removal. It's a 3/3 with haste. Whenever Screaming Nemesis is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life the rest of the game. Just a good hasty threat that's really, really hard to block to answer. Playing a 1 of Chandra Spark Hunter. This is a 4-mana Planeswalker which starts with 4 loyalty. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1 vehicle you control. Until end of turn, it becomes an artifact creature and gains haste. That doesn't really matter, except for its own 0 ability. +2 is you may sacrifice an artifact or discard a card if you do draw a card. So this allows us to fill up our graveyard a little bit more with Delirium, allows us to sort of have card selection. Its 0s, we create a 3/2 colorless vehicle artifact token with Crew 1, which remember, Chandra can mana up by herself, especially the turn it comes out because it gives a haste. As my 7 is you get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control enters, this emblem deals 3 damage to any target. So that just says win the game in this deck. Like let's be totally real. So really we're playing this against decks that are really good at answering what we're doing or go super long because this is much harder to answer a permanent. We could play a Witchstalker Frenzy in the sideboard for things with big butts to get out of the way. Also fine for racing against aggressive decks. It costs 1 less for each creature that attack this turn. So in this deck, it very often costs 1 and deals 5 damage to target creature. So perfect size for Shield Druid, etc., etc. Could play a Paw Patch formation. It's a 2-mana instant. Destroy target enchantment, destroy target creature with flying, draw a card, create a food token. It can replace itself, which is awesome, but great enchantment hate. The flying thing doesn't really matter in Standard right now. We could play a single Tranquil Frillback. So this is one of those Jack of all trades, Master of none cards. It's a 3-mana 3/3, and when it enters, you can pay green up to 3 times, and each time we get to choose one of these effects. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, exile target player's graveyard, or you gain 4 life. So decent against aggro because you gain life, really good artifact and enchantment hate, good graveyard hate. The thing is, it's not excellent at any of these things, but it can come in a lot of matchups. And we're playing 2 Haywire Might, which is a 1-mana 1/1. When it dies, you gain 2 life, and we can pay green, sacrifice Haywire Might to exile target non-creature artifact or enchantment. Decent artifact and enchantment hate, decent against aggro because you gain life, and it's a creature and an artifact, so it's good for Delirium. So let's talk about the top 10 decks and how to sideboard against them. The most popular deck is the Gruul aggro deck, basically mono red splashing green. We're gonna decide all this removal: Torch to Tower, Abrade, Obliterating Bolt, Pyroclasm. I like Screaming Nemesis too. Trickle Fillback to block and gain life. And Witchstalker Frenzy just has additional removal. We have 11 card sideboard for the Gruul aggro deck. Again, not the mirror, the aggro deck. We'll be sideboarding the same against Gruul Prowess and mono red Prowess as well. And we're going to be siding out anything that's slow or doesn't just directly attack on its own. Just important that it is good nearly entirely on its own. We're going to side out of these exhaust combos because we often don't have time to activate them, and they're bad blockers. Side out a single run and Realm Breaker, even though it can create a 3/3, like I'm not super interested in that compared to everything else in our deck, and this time I'm going to sideboard against those 3 red-based aggro decks. The second most popular deck is Esper Self Bounce. We're going to sideboard the same as Dimir Self Bounce as well. Abrade is super good, is able to kill every creature, especially Fear of Isolation, so they can never Kaido. Witchstalker Frenzy, also a fun card. I'm also a fan of Obliterating Bolt, and Paw Patch Formation is actually pretty decent for the Destroy a Flying and not. And we're going to decide out of things that are miserable when they're sent back to our hands, because remember, they have a lot of removal. I'm not a fan of Torch the Tower, though, to start. Violent Urge is just too easy for them to interact, so I'm not a giant fan of it. And we're going to side out of a few Afterburner Expert, because getting that sent back to my hand is really miserable. So this is how we're going to sideboard against Esper Pixie and Dimir Bounce. Which brings us to the fourth most popular deck, which is Golgari Midrange. Against Golgari, they're trying to kill our creatures. Like, that is just straight up what is happening. And they have decent blockers. So we're going to be siding in Chandra Spark Hunter, the 2 Obliterating Bolt, and Witchstalker Frenzy, these guys to get blockers out of the way, and this to go, and Chandra to go long and have a more difficult to answer permanent if it's needed. We decide now Torch Tower, we just don't need it. Violent Urge, they have too many removal spells, and a Beastie Beatdown. We can't rely on having a creature all the time. This is how I'm going to sideboard again. And a lot of stuff has Death Touch too, but this is how I sideboard against the Golgari midrange deck. The fifth most popular deck is Domain. Against Domain, I'm a fan of Obliterating Bolt. It deals with, it deals with a lot of the Overlords and also deals with Zur pretty cleanly. Similar thing with Witchstalker Frenzy. We hate enchantments with Pop Ash Formation. We hate enchantments with Trago Throwback. We hate enchantments with Haywire Might. However, this game's going to go really long and they have a lot of removal spells. So we're going to side out this Torch the Tower and Violent Urge again. Alongside Beastie Beatdown, we have cleaner answers that are coming in. And they don't really use their graveyard, so we're going to shave on Keen-Eyed Curator, and this is how I'm going to sideboard against Domain. The sixth most popular deck is the Dimir midrange deck. Often now sporting Oil Deep Gear Hulk. So it's started to attack your hand a lot more, which means I like Torch the Tower. Deals with a bat pretty easily. Similar thing with a Braid being able to take out the Gear Hulk. Obliterating Bolt deals with pretty much everything in the deck as well, indefinitely. Witchstalker Frenzy, similar experience. And we're going to be siding out a lot of the same cards as the Golgari deck. So this is how I'm going to sideboard against Dimir. The seventh most popular deck is Gruul Prowess, we've already talked about. Eighth is Mono Red Prowess, which we've already talked about, which brings us to Jeskai Convoke as the ninth most popular deck. We're bringing a bunch of this removal, especially Pyroclasm. Pyroclasm, so good. Screaming Nemesis. Yeah, we're just gonna bring all of this removal in. Keep them off being able to combo and convoke and just apply a ton of pressure. They're an aggro deck, so we're gonna get rid of a lot of the stuff that doesn't really do anything when it by itself. And that's how I'm gonna sideboard against the Jeskai Convoke deck. And the 10th most popular deck is Azorius Tempo, Azorius Oculus, the Reanimator deck, whatever you want to call it. Sideboard and Screaming Nemesis because their things are huge very often, so it's kind of hard to block. Witchstalker Frenzy answers both of their major threats. Pop Ash Formation kills those major threats. And we're siding out of Torch the Tower. We'll be siding out of Violent Urge and take out a Beastie Beatdown again, just because they have a lot of ways to bounce and all that stuff. So it's how I'm going to sideboard against Azorius Oculus. That is how to sideboard against the top 10 most popular decks in Standard with Gruul Delirium, which is a really sweet, very new to the scene deck that I'm excited about. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.